As the battle raged on, Albert held his ground firmly against the 4 major gods' attacks. The 5 figures moved around so fast that they seemed to be intertwined, and it was impossible to tell them apart. It was quite an overwhelming sight to behold. Everywhere they passed by, trees would fall and houses would collapse. The entire place was in ruins. Dustin stood at the entrance to the medical center, blocking out the occasional stray bursts of true energy that went their way. It was a good thing that Albert had the sense to lead the fight away from them, or the medical center would also have been destroyed. Dustin, who would have thought that you had such a powerful elder in your family? Even the 4 major gods cannot defeat him. Maximus stared straight ahead at the 5 figures who were engaged in a tight battle. They moved so fast that he could not even make out who each person was. "He's not an elder," Dustin said coldly. "He's not. Then why is he with your father?" Maximus was intrigued. "He's just a servant working for the Rhys family," Dustin answered aloofly. He didn't particularly like Albert. A servant? Maximus could not believe his ears. He was awestruck, to say the least. "You have such a powerful person as a servant. Are you royalty, Dustin?" Maximus wondered to himself. "We've got trouble." Suddenly, Dustin seemed to detect something. His head whipped up, and he stared intently down the street. The lights along the street briefly dimmed before they started to flicker. In the blurriness, a figure could be seen coming towards them. When the lights came on, the figure disappeared, and when the lights went out, the figure materialized again. He approached closer each time the lights flickered, and in just a matter of seconds, the person appeared before the crowd. It was an old man with a black beard who wore a dark cloak. He was shrouded in a dark mist and emanated an air of demise. I know him. His Hades, god of the underworld from the Hall of Gods." Someone from the crowd exclaimed all of a sudden. Chaos broke out instantly. "Good heavens! Even Hades, god of the underworld, is here. What on earth is going on today?" The 3 Williams men were scared out of their wits and reduced to a flustered state. The reason behind their shock was that Hades, god of the underworld, was a royal god. His status and power far exceeded those of major gods like Athena and Ars. They were on 2 completely different levels. There was no mistake in saying that his presence in the Hall of Gods was unparalleled. If the strongest of major gods were comparable to grandmasters in Dragonmarsh, then a royal god would be equivalent to the most superior of ultimate grandmasters. There were only a handful of ultimate grandmasters in Dragonmarsh, and each of them was regarded as a national treasure. They usually busied themselves with protecting the country's borders or guarding the palace grounds, and they rarely ever made public appearances. The same could be said for the royal gods of the Hall of Gods. They were never deployed unless their nation's security was at risk of being breached. Akin to nuclear weapons, they were more often used to intimidate and deter enemies rather than to engage in actual battles. But today, it was truly beyond anyone's imagination that the most elite person in Struqua, a royal god from the Hall of Gods, would actually make an appearance here in Dragonmarsh. Were they here to initiate war? "It's been a long time, Mr. Rhys." Hades took off his cloak and nodded at Rufus like he was greeting an old friend. "The Hall of Gods has truly gone all out this time around. Even a royal god has been deployed. Wouldn't it be a calamity if your nation lost you here?" Rufus raised a brow, looking as calm as ever. "Mr. Rhys, if you were in West Lucosia, it goes without saying that I would not act rashly. Unfortunately, you have chosen to leave your own safe zone, so don't be surprised that we're taking action," Hades said with a smirk. "Oh, so do you think that you're able to kill me?" Rufus asked lightly. "We've done our investigation. You only have a Grandmaster guarding you now. Athena and the rest of them will be able to keep him busy, and that would leave me to deal with you alone, and I'm fairly certain I can take your life." Hades was very confident in their plan. There was an ace in the West Lucosian army who was extremely accomplished in his swordsmanship, and Hades knew that he was no match against that person. But luckily for them, Person was not here today, so this was the best chance for the Hall of Gods to launch an attack on them. That as long as Rufus died, West Lucosia would be left without a leader, and Struqua could boldly invade them, and they wouldn't stand a chance. This was a vital step for them, and they would not allow themselves to fail. "Since you already have everything planned out, Come on then, Rufus invited impassively. Have your last look at the mortal realm, Mr. Rhys.